Well, hello everyone. Actually, a little story I wanted to tell. The coolest thing happened today, totally unexpected, and it's kind of one of those things that kind of confirms that it's not too late to for a society that maybe they don't love reptiles, but they put up with them. And so anyway, into the story. My son was actually going to go stay the night at a friend's house of his, and what the hell? Come on. Stay the night at a friend's house of his tonight, and his friend lives with his grandparents. When his grandparents showed up, I was a little concerned about this woman who I've only spoken to just in passing one time when she dropped my son off the last time he stayed over there, and she was on her way to the front door. And I thought, okay, here's this elderly woman, spent all this time living all these years up here in what I like to call Hickville. And for those of you, the definition, for me at least, of Hickville is, you've all heard it, the only good snake is a dead snake. It seems like people up here go out of their way to kill snakes. And I was a little concerned because I happen to have a living room full of snakes. So she comes to the door, she gets to the door, and I don't want to be rude and not invite her in. I'm a little scared of, I have these visions in my head of this elderly woman screaming and running out the door and injuring herself and suing me. Just all this terrible, terrible things. But anyway, she comes inside the house and we talk for a few minutes, and she seems fairly oblivious to the fact that she's surrounded by snakes. She pays no attention to anything in there. And after talking for a few minutes, she asked me, she says, she points towards my king snake enclosure in my living room and says, "Is that the constrictor?" And I explained to her, well, they're all constrictors, and proceeded to show her the boa enclosure. And what she was talking about specifically were the pythons. And of course, I had just pulled in the driveway and I had them in a sack. I took them up to NorCal Exotics to get them sexed to confirm what I already knew, and thank you, Kevin, very much for that. And so they were still in the sack and they were going in their new enclosure, so I explained that to her, and we sat there and had the most interesting conversation. Now she obviously told me about how her husband killed a rattlesnake on their property, which I hear these stories all the time, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. I know a lot of people up in this area tell those stories just to get under the skin of somebody like me that loves snakes, and I don't let them bother me. I understand that I don't like it, don't get me wrong, I don't like it, but I understand people are going to do it, and I think it's a lot better to come off with a positive attitude and try to change somebody's mind about the animals rather than go off and call them a whatever, so it's worked before. I've converted people before. So anyway, we're talking about the snakes, and she tells me that she thinks they're extremely intriguing and one of the most interesting creatures in the world. However, she wouldn't have one at her house, in the house as a pet, obviously, but it blew my mind that someone like this, that again lives in Hickville for all these years, an elderly person, would have an outlook like that. I mean, I won't have one, but I respect them. And that was just, not only respect them, she talked about how interesting they were, and yeah, it was crazy. It was really crazy. Completely threw me off from what I thought, all those thoughts in my head about her screaming and running out the door. And yeah, totally amazing. She asked about the babies, talked about how cute they were. I had a couple babies in an enclosure in the living room as well. And so yeah, anyway, I wanted to share that story. Thought it was an awesome story. I hope you think it was an awesome story. And like I said, NorCal Exotics, awesome. Thank you, Kevin. It is a boy.